Bills fall to 3-2 on the season with a tough 23-20 last-second loss to the Houston Texans on the road. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone Podcast.
And I'm Andy Young down at NRG Stadium in Houston, where things started poorly for the Bills, didn't get much better throughout the whole host of the game, especially on offense. Did enough, though, to claw their way back into the game. And then the Houston Texans win on the last-second field goal. It was one of those days for the Bills as they dropped to 3-2.
One of those days, they're becoming too many of those days, Andy's, with slow start in Baltimore, slow start in the opener against the Arizona Cardinals, but they were able to come back and win. And now you have this one in Houston against a Texans team who was the hot team going into the season that everyone thought was going to make a big dent in the AFC this year. And it looks like, at least at this point, Andy, they are, because they took care of the Bills and actually got out, made it look pretty easy on both sides of the ball against the Bills. But there's so much wrong in this one, Andy, even though they came back, even though they actually tied this game. And shout out to Jordan in the control room. He called it when it was like a 20-3 game. He was like, the Bills are going to tie this game up. So shout out to him, Andy. But again, here we are with the team coming out flat in a big game against a big-time opponent.
There's some numbers here that are staggering for the Bills and not in a good way. 4. That's the number of wide receiver catches in this game. Not good enough. Josh Allen, 9 of 30 passing. Not good enough. Certainly not good enough. And they almost still won this game. That tells you how it went. The offense has got to get something figured out. Yes, they were missing Khalil Shakir, but the offense that we saw from Joe Brady and Josh Allen through the first 3 weeks has simply not been there in losses to the Baltimore Ravens and Houston Texans. And they've got to get this thing figured out in a hurry. Do they have the playmakers offensively? That's been the big question since they traded Stephon Diggs, and their only real replacements were to bring in a rookie and Keon Coleman, who were their major questions about. And they signed Curtis Samuel, and they signed Mac Hollins. Samuel's been almost a dud so far this season. Hollins has had a couple of nice plays and had some moments, as has Coleman, of course. He scores the only touchdown in this game. But offensively, do the Bills have both the right game plan and the right players to compete against the better teams and come out victorious in these situations? The last 2 weeks have shown they might not, and that's concerning. They've got to figure out a better way to utilize the guys they have, and they've got to figure out if the guys they have are enough, because there's a whole lot of people out there that are calling for some trades. We know about Devontae Adams and others, that people are going to want to see Brandon Beane make a move, because this was his roster construction. This is the way they put this thing together. All rainbows and roses and jujubes and all that sort of fun through the first 3 weeks. Now those ugly warts are starting to reveal themselves, and it's a big question whether they have the horses to really get after it.
Khalil Shakir missing a game should not be such a big blow to this offense. From what they set up during the offseason into the regular season getting underway with this whole everybody eats mantra that, okay, but there's no one eating. Marcus Valdez-Scantling isn't eating. Curtis Samuel isn't eating. I'm sorry, I like Mac Hollins, but if Mac Hollins is your go-to guy deep down the field at crucial points in the game, if I'm Josh Allen, I'm sitting back there like, what are we doing here? Where am I supposed to go with this ball? When we sit here and the Bills, even going down to tie the game up with a chance to even take the lead, did you honestly think that they were going to be able to push the ball down the field and take the lead? I mean, they got the fumble recovery by Dorian Williams, and that set them up, and they only came away with a field goal where they could have went ahead right there by 4 and probably have locked up the game, Andy. It just doesn't. James Cook, nice runner, but when there's nothing else going on offense, and that includes Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, who's just, they're not even using him in the passing game, which just floors me. The whole offense, you look at it now, Andy, what are we, 5 games in, how you could possibly trust this offense. Josh Allen can only do so much, and as we saw towards the end of the game, when he tried to put the team on his shoulders and eventually it's going to catch up to him, he went down and had to miss some time. So it's just, I hate it. I can't stand it.
You're getting upset. I do want to put some of the blame on Allen briefly, and then we'll move on to things that I think are a far bigger concern than Josh Allen. How different might this game be if he hits Mac Hollins wide open, deep downfield? Hollins was wide open. He did his job on that play. Josh missed him. He's got to hit that. Now, there were other places where there were drops and things of that nature. Josh has got to be better, but the cast around him against certain teams who seem to have figured out how to handle Joe Brady's everybody eats stuff and some of the misdirection and some of the fun things we were seeing in the beginning of the season, the good teams have caught up to that. So they've got to find other answers, and they've got to find them quick. I've said I'm not convinced. I feel like I say it every week on our podcasts, every week on our post-game show, even when things are going good. I'm just not convinced about this wide receiver group. Some nice guys, some good players, some guys who could blossom into more. I really like Khalil Shakir. I kind of like Keon Coleman, right? He's not perfect, but he's a player. But beyond that, 4 catches, 4. What are we doing here? It's not good enough. They've got to figure that out, and they've got to do it in a hurry. Look, the Jets are coming up. They've got a decent defense. Yeah, I think they're not nearly as good as I thought they would be. They're still going to cause problems defensively. They've got to get this stuff straightened out, and they've got to figure out ways. If they don't have guys who can win man-to-man or one-on-one and win their matchups, they've got to figure out ways to scheme them. And right now they're doing neither.
Stevie Johnson and I were talking on the post-game show about Curtis Samuel and his lack of production. And, Andy, you and I are there every week at Bills Media Day or when the coordinators talk, and you hear, oh, we know we got to get Curtis Samuel more involved. Is he running the wrong routes? Oh, I hate that word. Is it like, I don't understand why you have not seen any short slant or crossing pattern or anything with Curtis Samuel. You have seen crappy screens that go nowhere, and maybe one of them was successful at any point, and he's nowhere else involved in the mix. You have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who has won a Super Bowl, Andy, who's nowhere to be seen out there on the field, and according to Stevie Johnson, is being utilized wrong in what the Bills are trying to do. He's the guy, one of the guys that needs to get downfield or deep down the middle and come up with those deeper balls and not trusting his hands on a short hitch right at the sticks that he ultimately drops.
Where can Josh Allen go when the chips are down, right? Where can he go when the game is on the line? And right now, he doesn't really seem to have an option, especially when Khalil Shakir is out. I will say this, Keon Cole, they've got to learn and they got to figure out some way, especially the last couple of games, to beat man coverage. The Dolphins played a lot of man coverage, and the Bills ate that up. Baltimore, different story. Houston, different story. The only time I saw anybody really beat man coverage was Coleman for the touchdown and Kincaid on a nice play. But it's just not enough. I mean, for Josh Allen to only have 130 yards, for him to be under a couple hundred yards the last couple of games tells you all you need to know about the offense. It's just not in sync. I don't think they have the horses, and I don't think Joe Brady's putting them in the best spots right now either. So it's a doozy, right? You got to figure it out. And then at that point, it's, all right, can we just pound the run game with James Cook and hope that we're in games late? Or do we need Josh Allen to be Superman and put his body on the line? Like, we all watch and see that, and it's great when it works, but he's taking some shots. He's been down on the turf the last couple of weeks, and that's not what you want to see. So they've got to figure out better ways and better options and more answers in that passing game. If they can't because they don't have the horses, that's on the roster construction of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and the staff as a whole and the approach that they took. And I think they are certainly deserving of questions about that this season. We all talked about them possibly taking a little bit of a reset year, but in an AFC that appears wide open, they still don't seem to have the right guys in place. That can change. They can figure it out. It's early in the season. We're 5 games in. It's 2 losses. This is not going to make or break your season, but the signs right now are not encouraging.
Josh Allen starting 1 of 9, Andy, passing, which I thought that first half was one of Josh Allen's, if not the worst first half of football I've seen him play. It was pretty up there. But again, I attribute it to what's he supposed to do? He's getting the crap kicked out of him, Andy. Eventually that's going to catch up. I thought that happened today when Allen went down towards the end of the game. He said it was a chest thing. Looked like it might have been a head thing. His head did bounce off the turf a few times. But at the beginning of that game, no one was open. You know, you say Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir were supposed to be the offense drivers. Well, Shakir's out. You're not getting much from Dalton Kincaid. And when Dalton Kincaid was there running down the middle of the field, Josh Allen underthrew him. So it was just a mess.
Yeah, it's not good enough. Again, I'll say Allen has to hit that deep ball to Matt Collins. We saw C.J. Stroud step up in the pocket and deliver a deep ball to Nico Collins right on target. So Allen's got to get better there. But you're right. He just doesn't have a whole lot of answers from his players. And I don't know what the answer is.
If
I'm got to get more out of those guys, or they got to make a trade.
Right. If I'm a defense right now and the Bills are staying with what they already have in-house, you know how to play who are you worried about? If you're on defense, you're worried about Josh Allen. Do everything. I thought the Texans did a good job. We talk about if you're going to spy Josh Allen or other quarterbacks, they need to be able to do a good job and be able to run them down. I thought the Texans did a decent job with when they used the spy to track Allen down, to keep Allen from being able to do what he's going to want to do. But it also seemed like to me he didn't want to really run with the ball in the first half of this game like he did in the second half when it was, this game is starting to get out of hand. I need to put this game on my back and start doing stuff. The bottom line is with me, they do need to bring someone else in at some point. You cannot move forward with every wide receiver not able to get open. And maybe Dalton Kincaid, if you scheme a play properly, does every now and then.
Yeah, we've got to have a conversation about the tight ends because those were supposed to be two drivers of this offense. Yes, they had moved Dawson Knox to more of a position of a blocking tight end, but he's capable to some degree in the passing game. He's making like $9 million a year. I like Dawson, but they're not getting anything out of him. Whether that's by design or by him, I don't know. And Kincaid, you trade up a first-round pick to get him, and he's not doing what you need him to do. If you're going to push your offense through a tight end, then he's got to be out there making 7 or 8 catches a week, and he's not getting that. They have to find a way. I said this on the postgame show. This Bills offense, at least in their passing game, needs an identity because everybody eats is good, but it's only good if everybody's eating. They're not even snacking right now.
Right.
Nobody's getting anything the last few weeks.
Not even soup.
Yeah, right? Give us a mint, something, man.
You talk about the tight ends, and I was talking about this during the post-game show, too. Josh Allen and Dawson Knox are friends. They have a great rapport. We've seen in years past the instinct of Knox knowing what Allen is going to do. Did he all of a sudden forget that?
They're not using him, Kevin.
Well, that's the point. Why not? Stevie Johnson brings up on our postgame show Gronk and Hernandez when they first showed up with the Patriots and how no one knew what to do with them. This is not Gronk and Hernandez by any means at all, Andy. But come on, man. The fact that Dawson is just kind of on the pay no attention list right now should mean he should be able to get open. If defenses are focused on Dalton Kincaid and Coleman and you see Knox out there, why Knox can't be out there running routes? It's mind-boggling to me. That's a big sticking point with me. This whole offense and what Josh Allen has at his disposal as far as who he can deliver the ball to, looked really good when it worked against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Looked really good when James Cook was running the ball and the Dolphins were having trouble with it. Other than that, they didn't look anything great against Arizona. They certainly looked horrible against Baltimore. And the Texans, aside from that Keon Coleman play, and I think there was a nice play to Dalton Kincaid where they gained a chunk of yardage, and then Josh Allen gets hit in the head on a slide, which helped set up a touchdown. This game isn't even that close as it ended up being, and it all just sits on who I'm starting to think is Joe Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to get that figured out a little bit better, and I think there's a point to what were they doing when they were successful, like against Miami? James Cook was a little bit more involved in the passing game too. Like, he's an explosive player. Where was that today? I know he had 2 catches and he ran the ball for 82 yards, so that was a decent day. They stuck with the run better, but use him more in the passing game. They bring him out every third down to bring in Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson's fine. He's a good blocker. He's better in pass protection probably. They trust him more, but use James Cook creatively. They struggle in the screen game. I mean, where was that sort of misdirection play like we saw against the Dolphins where Samuel goes one way, they slip Cook out. Like, I know teams are going to see that and then no, but then you got to have a counterpunch.
Right.
Brady has shown no counterpunch yet.
No, and I think that's the problem. It all looked good for those 2 games, but
I thought they moved the ball pretty well as well against Arizona too, but they just didn't have remember that game got weird.
But that game,
they were okay.
Josh Allen had to do a lot in that game against Arizona.
And there are games where he's going to have to do that. That's the nature of the NFL. But
right.
You got to give him some easy button answers to get games going. Like, it's just unacceptable where they are with the offense right now, and that's either scheme or players or both. It's probably both.
Yeah, it looked like – let me ask you this. It looked like the Bills were going to at least force this game into overtime. You and I think we can both agree that the passing game, the separation, the wide receivers, just really non-existent. Yet with the ball down near their goal line, they go 3 passes and then punt the ball away to the Houston Texans from the end zone. That leads to the eventual game winner. I'm at a crossroads with that, Andy, because I look at that, and Houston still had 3 timeouts. So what do? Right. You run the ball. They're going to take the timeouts that they have. But if you pass the ball, and I believe they did this on 3rd down, and Josh just couldn't get it to Samuel, they're running these vertical pass plays, whereas, and our buddy Stevie Johnson pointed out, one of those plays, someone should have cut inside to at least get the first down and keep that clock running. I'll question 3 of them in a row. Like, try something different, but I don't know what you would do there with the Texans still having 3 timeouts.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think a lot of people are going to talk about that, and rightfully so. It's a difficult situation. You're at your 3-yard line with 40 seconds left, and they have all 3 timeouts. So if you run the ball, for example, 3 straight times and don't get the first down, you've probably taken 18 seconds off the clock, and you still have to punt. And so they, maybe they have 12, 14 seconds left at that point, and they get the ball at the 50 or so. What I would like to see, and Sean McDermott alluded this, is to maybe run the ball on first down and see where you are. Maybe Cook breaks one off.
Right.
And then you force them to burn a timeout, and then you can evaluate it. All right, now he gained 6-7 yards. All right, now you're in business. They don't know whether you're going to run or pass. And if he gains nothing, well, then you're going to pass anyway because you know where you are, right? So to me, you probably should have ran it on first down, to be honest with you. The way the thing was going, I would have rather trusted James Cook with the ball in his hands than the wide receivers and the ability to get them open. It just wasn't happening. There were so many years in the past where you would think that Allen would easily be able to figure that out and get a first down and get them to overtime.
Right.
Not with this group of receivers. And you're right. The route running there, the plays that were called, I'm not a huge fan of. I can see Sean McDermott's point, though. And I kind of have gone back and forth on it. And I'm not going to crucify him over that decision, but he even said, maybe that was on me. Maybe we could have done things differently. So, I mean, it's going to be a talking point for people, especially those that harp on McDermott. But he did take a lot of blame, at least publicly, for this game.
Yeah, you bring up James Cook, and I was trying to go over in my head, well, what's the scenario? You try the pass play on first down, you give it to Cook on second down to see if he can get closer to the first down, and then you have more options as far as how to pick up the first down there. But, the more I sit on this, Andy, and you brought up James Cook, the way he was able to run the ball, you're probably right. First or second down, they should have at least started there and then decided what to do off of that, because the 3 passing plays that they ended up running didn't stand a chance. And, oh, by the way, you could have possibly ended up with a safety with like a hold or Josh Allen stumble or whatever. So to pass 3 times in a row there, very questionable to say the least.
Yeah, I think that's a case where there's no clear definitive answer, to me at least. There might be people out there who swear up and down they should have ran it. There'll be other people, I think I talked to some of our colleagues in the hallway waiting to go into the press conferences that, that was the right call because of the 3 timeouts and the position on the field. You got to try to get out of there and get that first down. So I agree, but I think, say you run it with James Cook and he picks up 4 yards on first. Now it's 2nd and 6. Now the Texans are wondering, is he going to pass? Is he going to run? We burned a timeout. I think there's some thought to running it a little bit there, but I can see totally why McDermott did what he did. It'll be a big talking point, I'm sure, all week.
Yeah, I mean, I understood it at the time. You look at the 3 timeouts and where they are. Like, I didn't have a problem with it until Stevie and I started talking about it, and McDermott came to the podium and talked about it. And then, they all will sit there. They said this after the loss to the Ravens, Andy, is, we'll take this, we'll learn from it, we'll move on to the Jets and blah, blah, blah. But this is 2 games in a row, Andy, where the Bills were rather lifeless on both sides of the ball at the start of the game.
Yeah, the starts have got to be better, definitely. I mean, the Bills did go down and get that early field goal. I don't think that it was horrible, but then, you give up the touchdown to Cam Akers, then they hit the bomb to Nico Collins, and the Bills are, quite frankly, lucky that Nico Collins was out of the game after that.
Right.
But he hurt his hamstring on that 67-yard touchdown. Had he been in the game, I don't know if the Bills are making the comeback, because Diggs had himself a decent little game, nothing huge, but he made some big plays. And I think I want to talk about the defense a little bit, because we're talking about slow starts. They've got to figure out a way to get off the field on 3rd and longs. It's an epidemic of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9. Somebody either runs a screen or the quarterback just sits back there and figures it out and finds Stephon Diggs, or they run a screen and get a first down. Going back to the Ravens game, this defense is just not well suited to get off those plays on 3rd and long, and I don't know what the reasoning is without taking a real hard deep dive into the film and knowing the play calling as well.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's the screen game with the running backs. The Bills just have a hard time with, and they talked about it after the game. There was the one drive that ended with the Terrell Bernard interception that had a couple of 3rd down and longs, I believe, on that, if I go through my notes here, where it was maddening watching 2 solid plays on 1st and 2nd down, and then either Stroud is able to take off for 20 yards or their tight end there, what's his name? Dalton Schultz burnt them a couple of times, or the screen game.
Now let me say this. The Texans live in that world. I think going into this game, their average 3rd down was over 10 yards, and they were somehow 3-1 going into the game. So they put themselves into that spot and seemed to succeed despite it. So they're used to living in that world. I mean, when you have good players, like you have Diggs, and you have Nico Collins, and you have Tank Dell, and Schultz, and Stroud is a very good quarterback, you can make some of those plays. We've seen it from Josh Allen. How many times have we seen a 3rd and 16 late in a game, and Josh Allen used to find Diggs over the middle of the field or whatever. I mean, good players can kind of make those plays. But the Bills have got to find a better way to get off the field, especially when they've set themselves up in advantageous positions on 1st and 2nd down, which they did quite often throughout this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, how did you think that the Bills' defensive line held up without Ed Oliver out there, and Von Miller, of course, suspended 4 games, so 3 to go on there? I was pretty impressed with, at the end of the day, the body of work, aside from the 3rd down issues we keep talking about. But I thought that front line did a pretty decent job.
Yeah, they weren't too bad. I mean, the Cam Akers play, you had 2 rookies on the field at tackle there at one point, and Cam Akers went untouched for the touchdown. I thought Dwayne Carter, for the most part, actually did a pretty nice job filling in for Ed Oliver. Like to see a little bit more out of Daquan Jones, but he's more of a space eater type of guy, so that's not necessarily his role to be getting sacks and big plays, making tackles. He's more there to take up space so the other guys can do work. I thought they did cause some pressure on C.J. Stroud, despite Stroud having a huge game stats-wise, at least yardage-wise. They did cause him some problems, and I did find it interesting. Late in the game, the Bills were going to what I call the race car, the NASCAR package of defensive linemen. Took out the defensive tackles and put 4 edge rushers out there with A.J. Epinesa and DeJuan Smoot at defensive tackle, and then you have Javon Solomon, the rookie, and you have Greg Rousseau at the edges. And that seemed to cause some issues for them. So maybe that's something they can lean into going forward, especially when they're seemingly having a little bit of trouble. Von Miller's out, Ed Oliver's out. They've got to find some different ways to generate pressure.
How do you think Cole Bishop did? Rookie making his NFL debut. There will be some eyes on him with that Nico Collins touchdown.
Yeah, not great from Cole Bishop. Something happened awry on that play. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze here.
Uh-oh. Gazoon tight.
Excuse me. Live podcast, yes. If you watch that play back, Collins gets over the top. Rasul Douglas is chasing him down. As soon as he's heading into the end zone, you see Douglas look back and point and be like, what's going on here? And who's in the frame? Cole Bishop.
Yeah.
So I think he might be struggling a little bit. I haven't watched him play for play on the All-22. Maybe I'll go back and do that this week to kind of see how he did. But I think generally the safeties have not been great for the Bills this season, especially the last couple of weeks. And, that's not to be unexpected, right? Think about who's out there.
Right.
No shade at all to DeMar Hamlin or Cole Bishop, but, they're not superstar players. They're young guys. Hamlin, we know his story. He's more of a vet now, but he's never been a full-time starter except for injury to the Bills. And Cole Bishop's a rookie, so you're going to have some growing pains when you have that kind of a situation.
When they showed the replay of that Nico Collins touchdown, I mean, you just see him. And again, we don't know the call. We don't know who's supposed to be where. He just blew right past Cole Bishop. Just right by him down the seam. So I don't know.
It looked like Douglas was expecting Bishop to be deep there.
Yeah.
And that they were kind of bracketing that area. And he had no chance. I mean, Nico Collins has developed into one of the best receivers in the league. So he does that to a lot of people, but when you're having a rookie not know exactly what he's supposed to be doing, or not be in the right place, or trusting his instincts, whatever it is, that's problematic.
How things have changed. A couple of weeks ago after the Jaguars game, we were talking about the Bills maybe being one of the legit top teams in the NFL. But now as the weeks are starting to play out, Andy, got to be a lot of concerns around this team moving forward. I mean, you have a Jets game coming up. I think you have Miami, Tennessee, Seattle in the mix, all coming up. Like when you
Seattle's good too, so
right. So when you look at this team, we talked about getting through those first 3 games, and they did it. But now things aren't as rosy as we thought after 3 games of the season.
Yeah, and I don't want to make anything too big out of it. There are definite concerns, especially offensively. Defensively, they're just ravaged by injuries and the Von Miller suspension. They've been ravaged by injuries since the Pittsburgh game, right, when Matt Milano went out. So
right.
they're hurting there. I mean, we'll see with Taron Johnson. I thought he might have a chance to play this week. Did not. He was inactive, but it was good to get Bernard back. We'll see what happens with Ed Oliver. We'll see what happens here if Taylor Rapp can get back in the mix. They're kind of beat up by injuries on defense, and that is going to catch up to you. So, and if that's the case, if your defense, which still held the Texans to only 23 points, not bad, right?
Right.
Considering how the game started, your offense has to be better. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for that. Yes, you're missing Khalil Shakir, but your offense has got to be better. And when they figure that out, I think they can get back to being a good team. It's a long season. We see good teams win. We saw Baltimore, give up a ton of points this week to Cincinnati after it looked like Cincinnati was terrible and Baltimore was world beaters. So things change week to week, no doubt about that. But big picture-wise, yeah, there is concern for the Bills. The sky is not falling yet, but they've got to get that wide receiver situation somehow figured out. How they're going to attack teams to continue to succeed is a really big question mark to me moving forward. And maybe we see a trade. I don't think Brandon Beane's going to trade a second rounder and then some for Devontae Adams and a potential rental player. You and I are on different pages as far as where they are in their team construction.
Yeah.
I just don't see Beane making that move.
I don't see Beane making that move. I would make that move. Again, time's running, Andy. We talked about this before the game. Time goes by pretty fast, and before you know it, it's maybe we only have a few more last runs with Josh Allen at quarterback. I'd do it. I'd bring him in. Go get that Super Bowl. Maybe not necessarily Devontae Adams, but you got to do something because that group of wide receivers you have out there, I don't care how you scheme it, how you set up plays, how you position things. I don't trust anyone out there but Khalil Shakir right now. And that stinks because Khalil Shakir's injured. Even Dalton Kincaid, what a bummer that's been for the start of this season, 5 games in. And we talked about Dawson Knox. So that's the concern moving forward. We all can agree on that, is how this offense is going to go. Maybe it's better at home when the crowd's not screaming. This will be 3 road games in a row for the Bills where they'll have to be dealing with loud crowds. I don't want to give excuses, but is that an issue with the offense, that they're just not able to communicate properly and all get on the same page? But you just have no faith that they're going to be able to string first downs together and then get in the end zone.
Yeah, it's going to be the biggest question that continues to haunt this team because of how they decided to treat the situation when they traded Stephon Diggs. And they decided to go younger. They decided to go cheaper. And maybe things change next season. But like you've said, you only get so many runs at it, right?
Right.
I don't know. You said it really well there. It's frustrating to watch. I know fans are frustrated because we all kind of saw this coming. And a lot of people put on the rose-colored glasses when things went well the first 3 weeks. And they were able to kind of hide some of those warts. Well, they've been uncovered now. And now it's on the coaching staff and the players to dig deep to figure it out.
Hey, they got a little extra time, right, to get ready for the Jets back on Monday Night Football. Hooray.
We'll get through this run of road games and primetime games. We can settle into some Sunday at 1 o'clock.
Tougher
for like a week, and then they'll get back to it again.
Tough for Buffalo sports fans, Andy. The Sabres, they don't look like they've taken a step forward really at all through the 2 games against the Devils overseas there. And now the Bills have lost 2 in a row. So maybe a rebound week for Buffalo sports, Andy, here.
Well, one can only hope, right? Hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Buffalo sports fan.
All right.
Never fades.
Andy and I will be back on a Wednesday this week. I don't know. We haven't seen the Bills' schedule yet.
Probably Wednesday. My guess is media day will be again Wednesday. They'll practice Thursday, probably have off Friday, and then practice again Saturday before they head to Jay-Z.
All right, fresh podcast coming up on Wednesday. Might have a fan podcast coming up later on in the week as well. We'll keep an eye out on that. And Bills, 3-2. Andy, we did say at the start of the season, 3-2 would be okay at this point of the season, right? Like you and I both agreed on that, right?
Yeah, it just never feels good when it looks like this.
Yeah.
Like it's different if, they're winning a shootout and then one team beats the other that way. But to get stomped by the Ravens and then have the offense be just as inept against the Texans, it's defeating for fans, no doubt about it. You take the temperature of people on Twitter, on X, and let's not say that's everybody, but it's what we can do in social media land. And it's tough, man, to watch your team who has this all-world quarterback who 2 weeks ago was the MVP favorite, not even be able to throw for like 150 yards and just struggle because of what else he has out there and what the offensive coordinators putting them in. It's tough.
131 yards, 1 touchdown. Still
9 of 30.
Still no interceptions.
Could you complete a pass in the NFL, Kevin? Like if you had one play?
Like, could I run the play like 10 times and try and... Or do you mean I'm just out there one play? Could I complete a pass? Probably not, because I probably could not judge the speed.
My point in saying that is it's very difficult, but the Bills need to find a better way to help number 17 out.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
I mean, I can barely judge like a stretch pass in hockey to a 50-year-old, 250-pound guy I'm trying to get the puck to. So I don't know if my timing would be right in the NFL.
And people have turned off our podcast.
All right, well, that's going to do it. We'll be back on Wednesday. Bills, Jets coming up as the Bills try to rebound. For Andy Young, I'm Kevin Carroll. Thanks as always for joining us.